welcome back to part 2 of Bradley Viking Reviews Night Watch by Terry Pratchett of the Night Watch of the Discworld series. I don't know. I feel like Night Watch is a very common choice. So just Google Night Watch, you might not get it, but if you Google Night Watch Discworld, then you'll definitely get it. And again, I wish I had a physical copy of the book to hold, but alas, I'm a heathen who likes ebooks. So we got our basic plot premise of Zambimes goes back in time. And of course, what does he do? But he joins the city guard, aka the police force, and he calls himself a copper. Again. And he tries to make a difference, but he's also a lot of commentary on, like, the state of the city at the time, which is being, like, controlled by just this madman tyrant who has a curfew, and you got this gang of secret police. So you got the main city guard, the night, who are like the night watch. So they're running around during the night and, proclaiming all as well while not really being an effective force for justice. And they round up people breaking curfew, but then they send them to the particulars, who are, what is that the correct term? The particulars, who are the secret police that torture people for information. But of course, like, there's a big commentary on torture and the fact that, like, it's not effective for getting true information. Its only purpose is to make people say what you want them to say. Or to just be sadistic. And okay, I'm too lazy to actually look up if it is particular, so it's just particular. And so they're just a whole mess of evil. And what sets Night Watch apart from, like, the rest of this Discworld series, while it does still have a fair amount of comedy throughout, there's also a lot of, like, darkness and a lot of, like, mess up stuff. And there's very little of the non-human characters, because Discworld's usually populated by all these, like, various types of races. Like, you got dwarves, you got trolls are your main big ones, but you also got gnomes and pixies and gargoyles and vampires and werewolves, oh my, zombies, and wizards and witches. And once Vimes in the present, like, the City Watch is made up of so many different types of these people. He's got dwarves, he's got trolls, he's got gargoyles, he's got next book they get a vampire, they got a werewolf, they got a golem. It's got all sorts. But in the past, they're all human. And in fact, when Vimes goes back to the past, he doesn't encounter any non-human character. And this, like, is a very big perspective shift in the Discworld. Like, there's not even any magic characters. The closest are the monks of history, who are responsible for the timeline, and, like, they're the people who are semi-responsible for Vimes being in the past, and they're definitely the ones who are going to help him get back to the present. But first they kind of need him to, like, sort of the timeline messes that Carcer, our villain, caused, because Carcer went and killed someone, and now Vimes has to take who ended up being the mentor for a younger Vimes, who just joined the city guards, the Night Watch. And now that guy's dead, so Vimes has to go and be him. So he has to mentor his younger self, and there's a lot of literary things going on there. And just the clear, obvious analogy, like, thing throughout the book is like, Vimes would have done this, but young Sam was watching. And it ends up being this thing of trying to be better in order to appeal to your idealistic younger self, even after, like, Vimes returns to the present and all this merry. But yeah, so the monks of history are the closest to, like, but they're still humans, they're just able to manipulate time. And they actually, like, give Vimes his chance despite, like, the danger of this time-space continuum. But yeah, other than that, everyone else is a human. And so it's a very human story. Yet it's also, like, some of the darkest acts on the face of the Discworld take place we just the whole totalitarian government shutting down on the citizens. Like literally, the city of Ankh-Morpork declares war on itself. Which ironically, like for a city that's so lawless, because it's like, well, they have lots of laws, just people don't follow them. And steeped in corruption. This is the only time in the series where the city actually declares war on itself. It's like, sure, you got your shady part, literally the shades, where you might go get murdered, and it's a place that enjoys a good bar fight and burns down every once in a while. But like, no, the actual government of the city declares war on the citizens, more or less. Like, I mean, there's no formal declaration because why would there be? But yeah, it's war. And by having everyone be human, I think Pratchett is very much trying to make like that statement of reality here. Despite Discworld living on the edge of reality, this is very much like a reality. I think even like the opening doesn't start with the typical like explanation like we're on the Discworld where it's on for giant elephants on the back of a tortoise. We just start right with Vimes. Actually, the opening is hilarious. It's Vimes like trapping a young assassin who was sent to observe him as a training exercise because in the present Vimes is so like paranoid and has so many traps around his house that the assassins have literally are not accepting contracts to kill him anymore because it's gotten too difficult. So instead, they just like send their trainees to see how close they can get to him before like they set up a trap. And so that's like a fun little scene. So like we do still have fun, but we also go into like torture and like the darkness inside a man's soul that can drive him to do terrible things and what you're willing to do and where the line is. But yeah, what I think is very relevant in those discussions, like again, when he's talking to the men and like stuff's going down. There's riots in the city. Other like city watch stations have been attacked. There's been like civilian deaths. They've had to call in like the military. And Vimes has to rally his men. I think like barely a dozen men here, and most of them just outcasts and misfits who are here for like a quick buck. They're no one at this point is in the city watch because they want to like better things. Maybe young Sam Vimes. No, they want to. It's a job. They're not well suited for other job. And it's a job that was easy enough to get into. And yeah. And so Vimes like he calls them out. He calls them out on the fact that like he says coppers do what they're told by the men in charge. It's always like that. What do you do when the new captain comes in? And actually, no, it's Ned. But yeah, the revolutionary's like, so one of it like the other cops points out like, who are they doing all this for? Like, why stand? Why man their posts at this time when there's revolution? What are they doing for the people? The people attack the other watch houses, the other police stations. And what's Night Watch ever done to hurt them? Which of Ives responds, nothing. There you are then. I mean, the watch did nothing. And that's what hurt them, said Vimes. And then the guy responds, what could you do then? Arrest the patrician? Arrest the tyrant? And the thing is, ironically, in the future, back in the future, is they had arrested the current tyrant. Like, there was a process of law, and that tyrant went free, but also Vetinari is not a villain, and he only maintains the status of tyrant because he's the most effective ruler of the land. Vetinari is, like, could be a subject for hour-long video. But still, like, there was a point in Vimes' past, but in the future of the city. That's the monks of history try to explain how that works. Where they had gone and arrested the ruler of the city. They went after our authorities. And it's like, how had he even dreamed that a bunch of coppers could slam the cell door in the past? On son could slam the cell door on the boss. And yeah, so it's like, but in the past, present, right, when he's got just the fellow officer saying like, no, they can't arrest the current ruler of the city, this tyrant who's crushing everybody. It's like, of course we can, but we ought to be able to. But maybe one day we will. If we can't, then the law isn't the law. It's just a way of keeping people down. Right? If you can't hold people in power, whether they are the highest level of government or whether they are supposed to be the law enforcement, accountable to the laws of the land, like, then the law isn't the law. It's just a way of keeping people down. I think it's actually a bit more relevant to the police force, right? If the police themselves aren't accountable to the law, then yeah, it's just a way of putting people down. It's just a tool of oppression. Is kind of this quote that on this reread really sparks with me. And every time I read like a Terry Pratchett book, like some other line really sticks with me. Thief of Time is infamous for how many, like in one scene, hell, in like a couple sentences in one scene, like a different part of the sentence will like stick with me and burrow in my brain. And like I'm gonna do another series of videos on Thief of Time, and that'll be like 5,000 videos because I could probably say a lot about a Thief of Time. But there's there's still way more to be said about Nightwatch. But my main point is that like this book was written in 2002, well before our current events of Black Lives Matter, defund the police, all this stuff going on. But Pratchett knew, like, and even though there's other parts of the book that point out, like, yeah, it is a very rough life being a copper, right? Vimes often goes on, like, yeah, this job sucks, and everyone's kind of against you, and the fact is, like, when these guys are guilty, like, why should I, like, so he constantly battles between, I need the power to take care of the guilty, but I need be able to, preserve the innocent. I shouldn't just be. There should be due process. Like, despite this beast in him raging, like, who did it. Go just kill them. He's like, no, this needs to be done by the book. Like, there's a reason for it. There needs to be these steps and protections. Like, Vimes hates the fact there are all these steps in the due process of the law. He despises it. But he'll be damned if he, like, doesn't go by it. Because despite the fact that he legitimately believes there are some, like, people who just need to be taken off the board, he also knows, like, no, there needs to be certain, like, you still need the proof. You still need the process to do it right. Even though, like, yeah, if he takes a criminal who's just going to be, hanged by the hangman, it's still proper for him to be taken in rather than just Vimes killing him right there in the dirt. And there's so much. So, I mean, there's some sympathy for the copper who's, like, just trying to do his job. But also, like, just because you're here to do a job, you need to do better. Like, there is more to this. It is not just a job. This is a responsibility. You have to do better. It is the law. You need to be held accountable because if there isn't the standard of morality we're held accountable to, then to hell with it all. And why not just, like, kill everyone? Like, in another book, when you're talking about, like, stop, if you could go back to the past and, like, shoot Hitler, now it's just, like, shoot, well, then, yeah, shoot that guy who would be Hitler, but then, next guy's gonna be Hitler, well, shoot him too. Well, then it escalates and you're shooting everybody, and next thing you know, you're invading Poland. Like, you can't, yeah, these systems exist for a reason. And I think, like, even kind of the makeup of the city guard is a reflection of, like, I don't know if Terry Pratchett knew, like, there's a lot of things that I don't know what Terry Pratchett knew, but I feel like he must have known some cops. Because he, like, I mean, Vimes himself just describes them as, like, a bunch of criminals. Like, a good copper has to think like a criminal. And the fact that they have Nobby Knobs on the payroll and actually part of the force, and he is a legitimate petty criminal. Although a very lovable one. I don't know. I love Nobby Knobs. Any Nobby Knobs fans, get at me. But yeah, that's my overall, like, 5 out of 5 stars review of Night Watch. Okay, I just really wanted to work that quote in there. The law. Because, yeah, if you can't hold those accountable, well, then the law isn't the law. It's just a way of holding people down. And there are so many good quotes in this book. Like, so many. Even if my messed up brain, one of my first reads, just related more to the beast in him. Like, you know, he's talking about the darkness inside of himself. But now on my lazy read is more about battling against the beast. Being better. And, like, I almost think, like, I don't know quite, but, like, for any potential police officers, like, training recruits, like, Night Watch should almost be required reading. I think a lot of them would like it. And there's a lot of just, like, it's a crappy job, but, like, we gotta do it, and they should, like, give us allowances to do it, because there's... Vimes does play dirty. Like, he buys brass knuckles and blackjacks and stuff, but there's also talk about, like, they have their swords are equivalent to guns, and how, like, swords should be your last resort. And we shouldn't, like, there's discussions on when to use lethal force and so and such, and the proper way of doing things. And a bit of discussion of the difference between military and police. There's a better discussion of it in the previous book, Jingo. Actually, well, not, yeah, the immediate previous book is The Fifth Elephant, which has a whole bunch of other good things in it. Again, they're all good. So City Watch is one of the series within the Discworld series. My other favorite is the Witch series. I like the Witches. Like, not that I don't like my boy Death. And again, Thief of Time is like the series finale for the Death books, as far as I'm aware. That's my other favorite one. But yeah, so get back to me if you like this, if you want to hear more about this, or if I need to, like, figure out my thoughts better. This has been 2:30 a.m. book reviews with Bradley Viking.